So the way I see it is that people who wear cross necklaces on top of their clothes are either wearing it that way to show people that they're Christian, to show off their religion in some way, or maybe if they wear it under their clothes it's because the person who gave it to them is very dear to them and therefore they want to keep it close to the heart. Here's a story. Some of you might know that I celebrated Christmas with my grandparents this year, or I was supposed to. And they live in this sort of L-shaped house where there's the main part of the house where you go in, here's kind of the entrance, and then there's a part here and a part here. This is kind of the main part where my grandparents' bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, the first bathroom, etc. is, the big hallway, and then there's like a small hallway. And what used to be the garage over here, but they've built it into an office and 2 guest bedrooms. My sister and I always sleep in the one at the far end, but what happened was that on the 21st of December last year, at about 4 in the morning, I am woken up by my mum. She's basically sobbing, telling us that we need to get out immediately, that it's important, it's an emergency, and I was like, why are you waking us at this time? What has happened? Can you tell us? And she was, no, get out now. And then I notice that I can't see anything. The room is jet black and the air smells bad. And then I realise, hey, I can't really breathe in this air, we probably need to get out of this house. Basically we get up, I'm still kind of I'm still asleep at this point. I haven't properly woken up because it's 4 in the morning. So my sister, my mum and I are running through kind of the small narrow hallway that leads to what used to be the garage. And as I'm in the entrance, I look into the main part of the house and it's in flames to the ceiling, and suddenly I realise why the air is like this, why it's black, why I can't see anything but fire. I remember thinking, alright, this is happening. What? Then I kind of come to my senses and we run out of the house after staring like at the fire for about 30 seconds. I don't know what we were doing in there, we were choking, all of us, but we ran out. And it sort of gets to me that my grandparents are probably still in there. And we're just kind of debating whether to try to run through the fires and get them out, because I mean at this point I'm pretty certain that they're in there, and I mean from my mum not telling us that no, they're waiting outside, I deduced that they are still behind the flames. Maybe in the flames, I don't know. I mean, we can't really comprehend the situation and what is happening, but my mum runs to the neighbours. There's snow outside. I am in my nightie, which consists of a blouse and a pair of underpants, and my sister's also in her nightie, which consists of a bit more than I was wearing, but I was bare feet in the snow, and that was quite cold. So as my mum runs to wake up some of the neighbours so she can call the fire department, my sister and I are basically in shock, panicking, we don't know what to do. We're standing outside a house that we were in mere minutes ago, it's on fire and our grandparents are in there, probably already dead. Then I realised that there's a back door from the garden that leads into the living room. So I try to run around, I try several times, but there's too much smoke, we're choking. I mean, the smoke is black, we can't see anything. Even when we're outside the house, it's very hard to breathe and it's very hard to see anything, but I try to run around. I'm like, it's just smoke, it's not fire, they're in there in the fire, they're grandparents, you need to get them out of there. It's impossible to get in. Then I tried from the other way, still impossible because there's just smoke coming out of all the windows because they'd blown up, which is how my mum woke up. I will tell you about that part. But finally my mum comes running and she says, go into the neighbours, they're right in there, I've called the fire department, they're on their way. And I look at my mum and I realise that she is black in the face. That's not racist, it's just from the smoke. And her hair is completely singed. So we go into the neighbour's house and we get some water and some clothes from their daughter who lived there like 5 years ago. Not very comfortable clothes, very ugly clothes, but hey, that's not what you're thinking about at this point. I'm just thinking about it this way because I've told this story so many times. It just feels like a film plot at this point. So my mum comes in and she says they're putting out the fires now and we need to get out of here. But we want to know what's happened, right? So I ask her, what exactly happened? How did you wake up? What did you see? Did you see them? Did you help them put out the fires? All those questions. She says she woke up to kind of the sound of every single window in the house shutting at the same time. So she gets out of bed and she runs into the hallway and sees that there's something that's on fire on the floor, kind of like a rug, but they don't have a rug there, so she's like, what is that? So the fire's right between the bathroom and the kitchen, and my grandmother's in the bathroom filling up a bowl with water to try and put the fire out, and my grandfather's on the other side filling up another bucket with water to try and help her put it out. And mum's like, this looks coordinated, what is this? But she doesn't say anything, she just gets right to it and helps them. but almost immediately they see that it's no use, that the fire is already too big for them to put out with just their own bare hands. Except that they didn't use their own bare hands, they did use water, but it was still too much fire for them to put out alone. But my mum also sees immediately that my grandfather is kind of in a position where he just can't get out of there. The fire's right in front of the door. He's basically stuck in the kitchen, but he says, get out of here, get out of here. And by this point, my grandmother still kind of has time to get out, but I don't think my mum really thinks. She just runs to wake up my sister and I, and there's already so much smoke in the house, and as she turns around there's a massive bang and all the lights go out. So she runs through the darkness, wakes my sister and I up, and by the time we're in the entrance again and she tries to get in, she sees that the fire is basically blocking the entrance now and there's no chance of getting in. And that's her side of the story. As she thinks about this, she told us that she's afraid that it might have been her fault, that she might have forgotten to shut off the coffee machine as she went to bed, and the coffee machine is right next to the curtains, so she's like, maybe they've pulled down the curtains and that is what was burning on the floor when she came in. But we're basically in the neighbour's house and we get extra oxygen and all that, and they say you have to sleep in a hotel tonight. They say that they want to take us to hospital, especially my mum, because she was trying to put out the fire with them for quite a while. So maybe 15 minutes pass and one of the people who was helping put out the fire comes in and says that there was no chance of saving your father. This was to my mum. There was no chance of saving your father. He is gone. We're sorry. But your mother, we're taking her to hospital right now. And this is when my mum starts crying. Not because her father's dead. When you've been together for 50 years and you have Alzheimer's and it's already quite bad, there's really no chance of living alone. Trivia, if you don't know already, the 21st of December is the longest night of the year. And it definitely was. We spent the next couple of nights in hotels. My mum calls everyone, including her sister, and we go to spend Christmas with them instead, even though they live a 9-hour car ride away. So I mean, regarding the circumstances, my Christmas was okay. I mean, at this point no one had really sort of comprehended what had happened yet. No one really thought about it, no one really talked about it. It was really weird. It was like it hadn't happened, really. I still felt like my grandmother and grandfather were there in the other end of the country, just living their lives as they usually do. They still don't really know what started the fire. They think it was my grandmother's bed. It was one of those electric beds, those, what are they called? The ones that kind of elevate, and they're almost certain that that is what started the fire, which of course brings us to the conclusion that what was lying on the floor burning was my grandmother's duvet that they'd taken out, so they had access to both water and the fire where they were standing on each side of it. So that was my Christmas. The funeral was on the 27th of January this year. There was about 30 centimetres of snow and it was minus 16 degrees Celsius, so it was very cold, but it was a very beautiful funeral. They were buried in Helsinki, which is also where my grandfather's mother was buried. Just for the record, this is the man who also cut himself in a banana several times and sold his gold teeth to get me this necklace. Hence, really odd start of this video. I'm not Christian in any way or religious. I see myself as an agnostic. That's why I wear it under my clothes now, because it does mean an awful lot to me, and the fact that my grandfather sold his gold teeth to get the money for this, it kind of makes me happy, but also kind of sad, because I mean, he didn't have to do that, but he did. I miss them terribly. They actually found out recently that my grandfather had had water in his lungs, and for those of you who have read The Fault in Our Stars, which I have, I love it, you'll know that when you get water in your lungs, you don't have much time left. And so they died fighting for their lives and the house that they built themselves more than 40 years ago. They died fighting for us. My mum also says that she knows almost certainly that had we not been in the house, they would have run out immediately. I think they just felt like they had to kind of try and do it themselves while they could, because their daughter and her children were in the house, who they loved dearly and didn't get to see all that much. And although they knew that the time was running out, I just wish that such good people didn't have to go in such brutal fashion. They deserved so much more than that. The reason I haven't told you about this earlier, there was the funeral the 27th, and there's just been so much stuff to see to. Haven't really had the time. Also, I didn't really know how to say it. I still felt really weird talking about it, because I mean, it does sound like you're explaining a film plot when you tell people this story. I mean, it's really true that stuff like this can happen to anyone. So I encourage you guys to shut off everything before you go to bed. And be careful with candles, etc. Because from the time the fire had started to maybe 10 minutes later, my grandmother and grandfather were already dead. So it happens very quickly. I'm doing okay. I'm still coming to London. FEBZ is still on. I am So excited. There's internet connection in the hotel, so we'll talk about it. We can Skype, etc. if you want to. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys. I know you're here for me, you don't have to tell me, and I'll see you on Friday.